Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm here today with Ian Wilson, who is the manager of the Transition Fund for ILF Scotland. We're going to be talking about what the ILF Fund is and how it might support your young person or you if you're just approaching transition. We're going to find out all about it and I've got lots of questions for Ian, so stay tuned. Hi Ian, thank you very much for coming and joining me in Ayrshire here, all the way from Edinburgh.
Thanks very much for inviting me, Jenny.
You're welcome. ILF has got quite a long history, I think, so it's probably a good idea to start off by clarifying what's been and gone and is no longer, and how some of that's just trickling along and how that's transformed into this new transition fund.
Okay, so ILF originally in its original entity was a UK-wide organisation that grew up out of some of the benefit changes that took place in the late 1980s. It administered a UK-wide fund to assist people with disabilities to remain in their communities and to live independently. Through various different governmental changes, that fund ceased to be. It closed to new applications in 2010 and was dissolved as an entity at the end of 2015-16. The Scottish Government looked at that situation, and following consultation with advocacy groups and disability groups, it was felt that Scotland wanted to retain ILF. So Scotland has retained ILF along with Northern Ireland, and ILF Scotland grew out of that, and we administer the fund as it existed previously for about 3,000 people across Scotland and Northern Ireland currently.
Okay, so those applications are no longer open for those people, so you're maintaining the existing...
Absolutely, yeah, and we review the provision that the people have from that fund and adjust it depending on one of the big things we've been dealing with recently is the application of the Scottish Living Wage to rates for PAs and the like, so that keeps us fairly busy.
Yeah.
The Transition Fund, which is what I'm part of, is really an extension of that. The Scottish Government, when they formed ILF, wanted to expand the role, so they came to us and offered us £5 million as an annual budget to find something to do with it, and really what we wanted to do with it was kind of up to ourselves. So again, another wide consultation took place, and it was felt that one of the areas that was really difficult for people, and young people in particular, was the transition from school into adult life, where there did seem to be a lot of gaps, and there was a real need for young people who just needed a little bit of help to get over that first hurdle and start making a life for themselves in the community.
So we've kind of established what the fund is. The people who are eligible for that, is that anybody with a disability?
Yes.
Okay.
We have some fairly simple eligibility criteria. You have to fit our age range, so that you can apply if you are between 16 and 21, and in fact you can apply before you're 16 for the money to start when you're 16, and you can apply right up to the day before your 22nd birthday. Okay. You have to be living in Scotland, and you have to have lived here for 26 weeks. Which usually isn't an issue for people. You have to have a disability or impairment, and that's as described in the 2010 Equalities Act. So it's not as strict as the old ILF fund was, where you had to have one of the either PIP or DLA at the high rate for care. We will take evidence. Obviously, if you have one of those benefits, then that's good evidence that you have a disability or impairment. Yeah. We can also take evidence from somebody who knows you really well. So that can be a teacher or a social worker or somebody that's worked with you for a while, psychologist, you name it. As long as it's somebody who has a bit of standing in terms of offering a professional opinion, we can use that rather than necessarily having to have one of these benefits to qualify. But if you do have one of those benefits, it's at any rate, so any of the rates of either DLA or PIP would qualify you to apply to the fund.
Okay. Talking about sort of applying for DLA and PIP, I know that when we start talking about applying for things, it kind of slightly sends shivers down our spines because we think, oh, application forms. Straightforward to apply for the ILF fund?
The form is available from our website, and it can be downloaded and either filled in by hand, or you can actually fill it in on screen. We're just about to start trialling an online application as well. It's taken us a while to get approval for that for the Scottish Government with all the security questions that are around IT use. But we're just about to start rolling that out as well. The application form itself looks fairly simple. I think sometimes the information that we require is a bit more complex than that. So we ask a young person to identify a goal or an outcome that they want to achieve. And that can be fairly high level in terms of what they hope to achieve from moving into the community, leaving school and moving on. So that can be quite high level. I think what people struggle with sometimes is identifying that outcome and then relating it back to what they're asking for from the fund. I suppose there is some other eligibility criteria in that you have to have little or no social work support.
Yes, I was going to come on to that. So anybody who is using a self-directed support budget is probably not going to be eligible then.
Well, herein lies the crux of the matter, I guess. You can still be eligible. I think it's about what you spend your SDS budget on, because clearly if we are looking for young people to identify an outcome that involves them in their community, then what we're really looking for is something that takes them out of their home. So if they have an SDS budget which is purely expended on personal care, so making sure that you're fed and watered essentially, then that's not going to take you into your community. And I would certainly urge anybody who thinks that they might qualify to make an application. We have a fairly rigorous evaluation process for the applications, and we can offer advice as well. If somebody wants to call into the office and say, this is my particular set of circumstances, would I be able to make an application? Would I be eligible? And what would the likely outcome be? Because what we don't want to do is to put people through an application process to then reject the application.
Yes.
So we would always try and give people information first if we possibly can.
And the point of the application and the funding is to achieve something really quite specific, isn't it?
Yes. Although, I mean, the outcome itself can be quite high level. So if it's about gaining a foothold in the community, for instance, that can be quite high level, and that might take more than the grant period, which is a year.
When you say high level, what do you mean? Do you mean general?
Yes.
Generalised. Okay. Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be absolutely specific. It's not about an output. Sorry, it's about an outcome. So it's if a young person wants to learn to drive, for instance, to be able to access the community. So about the higher level outcome might be about accessing the community and being independent, but actually the goal below that is actually to learn to drive so that they can do that themselves.
Yeah. With a lot of funding, there are eligibilities around your maybe existing income or savings. Does that apply in this case?
The only means test that we have, if you want to call it that, is that you must have less than £26,250 in the bank.
Okay.
So far, with the applications that we've received, we've not met any 16 or 17-year-old that has that level of funding, so it's not been an issue. But it is there in case that there may be young people who have trust funds or that kind of income of that kind of nature.
Yeah. Okay. I know that you have a certain budget from the government for each year. Have you found yet there's been any kind of waiting list, or are you having any issues with number of applicants or anything like that?
Not at this point. Quite deliberately, we opened the fund quite quietly. We opened just before the end of December last year. We made that commitment to the government that we would do that. And we've been in a kind of phase to learn process since then. My post has been created to take it forward from the learning phase into the active kind of production phase. To date, we've received 550 applications, of which about 400 have been processed. We have an average payout rate of roughly £3,500 per grant, but that varies from a very small grant for a very small item right up to grants of the maximum of £7,500. And in fact, for particularly transformative changes for young people, we can actually extend the grant upper limit, but the normal grants would be up to £7,500.
Okay. And can that be, just picking up on something you said there, can that be for a physical thing?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not just, and also could that be used for support? So if someone maybe wasn't getting an SDS budget, didn't have somebody to support them, but would benefit from a little bit of support to get them out and try something, can it be used to pay wages?
Yes, it can be used for that. What it can't be used for is personal care.
Okay.
But it can be used, if there's incidental personal care in accomplishing the goal, then that's fine. So if you need someone, for instance, to help you get to the gym, because that's what you want to do, you want to get fit and you want to meet people out in the community, but you're going to need some support to do that, maybe some travel training even, in terms of getting there and getting back, and maybe through the grant period of the year, you can look at getting quite a lot of support to start off with, so somebody going with you to the gym, and then, as with other travel training, perhaps starting to pull back as the year goes on, so by the end of the year the young person's able to go themselves to the gym and accomplish that. And anything that really enhances a young person's independence and their contact with the community is what we can fund.
And is the aim that these have to be completed within a year?
The grant period is a year, so you have to use the funding within the year. That doesn't mean that you can't come back to us at the end of the year if you've got another goal that you would like to reach. But depending on how busy the fund is, would depend on how likely that would be to succeed at that point.
And I presume that somebody can apply on behalf of their young person if they have guardianship for them or they're an appointee.
Absolutely.
Or anything like that.
Anybody can fill in an application form for a young person. We do find that the best applications are completed by the young person themselves or along with someone else. So we've had a lot of applications that have been completed in conjunction with the young person, maybe by a teacher, by a parent, by somebody who knows them really well and can tell us how their disability affects them and what benefit what they're asking for from the fund would give.
Have you got a couple of examples of interesting things people have done with it?
Yeah, there's lots of really good examples. We've had quite a lot of success in helping young people who take part in disability sports. So we've had one young man who just came back 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think, from a Special Olympics style skating event in Colorado. He'd gone off to compete for Scotland over there. Created a massive network of friends and acquaintances while he was away, and he's actually now one of our advocates in some other stuff that we're doing in terms of publicity around that. We've had young people who have asked for very simple things, like an iPad, a young woman who found it very difficult to get out and about, but created her own kind of social network through using her iPad and kept in touch with her friends and family, uses Skype quite a lot. So we don't fund things, we fund outcomes. That's our mantra for this fund.
Yes.
So it's very much about what the outcome is and not really what we need to provide to get you there. That can be quite flexible.
Yeah.
One of the most popular things that we've been asked for young people is driving lessons. I think that's quite a difficult thing for some people to fund. It's obviously quite expensive to fund a course of driving lessons for a young person, and we can fund their driving licence, their driving lessons and their tests as well, if that's what they want.
Fantastic.
And that's one of the simpler requests that we get, 'cause it's quite easy to quantify and to add up. I think if I was saying one thing about how applicants could make the job that we have easier in terms of evaluating, it's about giving us as much detail as possible, about being very sure about what they're asking for and what the costs are, because with this being Scottish Government money, we have to account for every penny that we spend, so we can't give out grants not on a whim exactly, but we can't give out grants not for a definite amount, so we need a definite amount to be able to respond.
Yes.
Otherwise, all we're going to do is come back and ask you lots more questions.
Yes. The only other thing I think I ought to clarify is, because it's called a transition fund and there's an age range of 16 up, is it tied in with when you're leaving school? Does it have to be a period at which you're physically leaving school, or can it be in the run up to or after?
It can be either.
Okay.
We've funded young people who are still remaining at school, but who are starting to test and try things, so that when they leave school they actually have something to go to that they have knowledge of.
Yes.
I think it's a really difficult time for families and for young people, and I think being able to preempt some of the difficulties that you might face when that moment actually comes, I think it's a real benefit for the young people, and particularly for the families who are quite naturally quite anxious about that massive change for a young person.
Thank you very much. I think we've probably answered everyone's questions. It must be a lovely job, because you're getting to go and read all these amazing stories about things people are doing with
and unusually for something like this these days, we get to go and give people good news.
Yes.
Which is really nice.
And see the outcomes.
And see the outcomes, and we do get those lump in the throat, hair standing up in the back of the neck moments. Even from some of the telephone contact we get, just being able to tell someone that, yes, no, actually you are eligible to apply, can mean such a difference to a young person and a family.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you,
and I'll put all the links to the website for the application, everything underneath. I think there's a leaflet as well that you can get hold of.
We have our Transition Fund booklet, which is available from our office, and you can either write in or email in, or just give us a call, and the number's 0300 200 20 22.
Fantastic. If anyone's scrabbling for a pen, I'll put that underneath the
Lovely.
film as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.